Welcome to the advanced Photoshop tutorial. So in this tutorial we're going to be creating a surreal Photoshop image. So for this tutorial we're going to be creating fire on Stav's hands. We've got her to hold her hands out just like this, and then we're just going to be adding fire onto each one of them. To be able to do this we're going to be using a combination of different techniques, including finding PNGs through stock photography on the internet and then blending them through layer masks using Gaussian Blur. We'll also be using different Photoshop techniques to add additional lighting where it's actually missing on her skin. Okay, so let's get started. The first thing I want to do is I want to do a frequency separation. Now, if you don't know how to do this, then I'm going to tell you to go watch the earlier tutorials in the series and that will teach you exactly how to do it. Okay, now that our frequency separation layer is done, next thing we're going to do is we're going to even out the lighting on her skin. So you can see the way I lit up her hands and her neckline was by using a flash, and I had the flash position just on this side beaming down, so it actually missed part of her chin here. I also want to add a red lighting effect just on the edge of her hands. Okay, so now we've done our frequency separation layer just over here. I want to start adding a bit of extra lighting into the image. So what we're going to do is we're going to go down to our color picker tool just here, and then we're going to select a really deep red color. Click OK. And then we're going to go over to the paintbrush tool. To be able to add some additional color just on her neckline and also on the edge of her hands, what I want to do is we're going to go over to add a new layer. Make sure you're on the paintbrush tool, then increase the size of your brush, and then we're just going to basically paint over the areas that we feel like we need to add a bit more lighting to. Keep in mind that we haven't adjusted any settings for this paintbrush tool yet because we want to make sure that it's nicely cut off before we actually add any filters to it. Okay, so if we go down over here and then adjust the opacity for that, and you can see exactly where we're going with this. So basically what I'm going for here is, because I'm going to have the two bits of fire on each of her hands, I want to make sure that the lighting for the fire actually matches up with her skin. So I'm just going to go ahead and refine the details for this now. Okay, so if you want to actually remove any of the red, then go over to the eraser tool and then you can quite literally just wipe it away if you need to. What we're going to do next is we're going to add a bit of red lighting just onto her hands, just to fill the blue sections just in between her fingers. Keep in mind we can always go back and edit this later after we've added the fire in, but I just want to make sure that I've covered my bases with this. Now, the reason we're doing this is so that it blends properly, because when you're on location you can't always get the perfect lighting, so you want to make sure that you refine it just before you add all the stock photography into the image. I also want to add a bit of red lighting just to this section over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a copy of exactly what I'm seeing on screen now. So I do that through pressing Command, Option, Shift and then E. And then that's going to create an exact screenshot of what we see on screen. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go up to Filter, then Camera Raw Filter, and we're just going to add some adjustments in so that until we get a nice red hue just on her hairline here. So I'm going to go up to the HSL adjustments, go onto Hue, and then we'll just adjust the reds a bit and the oranges. Go back here and then adjust the color temperature a bit again and add some purples in too. Now I'm going to click OK. Now you can see that's a pretty drastic adjustment, so what we're going to do is we're going to add a layer mask to that. So hold Option, then go down here and click Add Layer Mask, and that's just going to add a layer mask that completely removes any elements from the image, and then we can just go ahead and then use the paintbrush tool with our white foreground color and then just add it back in. And we can also do this to any other sections of the image we want to as well. So I'm going to add a bit just on our hands here. Keep in mind that because we've added a layer mask to it, if we need to, we can just click the eraser tool, make sure that we're selected on the layer mask, and then we can just go ahead and erase it if we need to later on. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to start adding the fire into the image. I find all of my PNG images just on Google, so I normally go search on Google, and then I'd search for fire PNG, click on images, and then a bunch of different fire photos will come up. So we're just going to select the best ones that we can find. What we're actually looking for is ones with a white background, that as soon as we click on them, they'll come up with a website that we can click on. And you can see as I clicked on that image there, the white background just got removed via Google Images because it's actually an actual PNG image. So this is the sort of thing that we want. So we want to right click on that and then click Save Image to Downloads. And we're going to do this for a couple of different fire images. Okay, so I've gone ahead and found the PNGs that I want to use for the image. I've downloaded a couple of different ones. These will also be linked in the resources section of this tutorial as well. So if you want to just save yourself some time and save yourself the search, if you're recreating a similar image to this, then I'll leave a couple of good PNG fire images in that section of the tutorial. So we're going to go ahead and then click it and then just drag it in. And you'll see as we drag it in, it'll immediately pop up like that. So to scale this, we're going to hold the Shift key and then go to the right bottom corner of the image and then just scale it down. Now I want this one to be just on this side here. Click the check mark just to confirm the transform. And I'm actually going to go ahead and flip this horizontally. So I'm just going to search flip. And then as I flip it horizontally, you can see that it's in the exact position that I want it to be. Now because I already added the lighting effect just here, you can see that I want it positioned and I want it to end just at the edge of her hair here. So we're just going to drag it into place and then we'll scale it up a little bit as well. Now what we're going to do just before we add a layer mask to this to blend it in, we're going to go up to our filter and then click camera raw filter. Now what we want to do is we want to match up the color of the fire with the color of her skin. So to be able to do that, we want it to be more of a red color. So we're going to go over to our HSL adjustments and then we're going to hue the oranges a bit into the red as well as the yellows and the reds too. So this will give it more of a deeper red color rather than being orange. And that's exactly what we're going for. It's going to add a bit of clarity into it as well. Okay, when we're done, click OK. And that'll just make the camera raw adjustments that we need to. Okay, so now to blend it in, what we're going to do is we're going to add a layer mask to it. So just go down here and click Add Layer Mask. Now with the layer mask, we can just go ahead and erase parts of the photo that we don't want to be in it. So I'm just going to go ahead and clean this area up a little bit. And now this is the part where we make it look legit in the photo. So what we want to do is we want to just blend it in with the fingers here. So I'm just going to go ahead and we'll just erase it completely so we can see exactly where we want it to end. Now we're going to go over to our paintbrush tool, just going to add it back in so that it's masked nicely between our fingers. And once we've created the layer mask just to blend it into our fingers, we can actually go ahead and press this unlink tool. And now we can quite literally just move it around within that layer mask. So if we want to just adjust it just down a bit and then scale it up again, then we can completely do that without actually changing the layer mask at all. So click OK. Now make sure that before you do any more adjustments, you click the link tool again. And now we're just going to redefine the mask. Okay, so now to blend it in, what we're going to do is we're going to go up to Filter, Blur and Gaussian Blur. Now we're just going to add a bit of Gaussian Blur into it to match up with how much her hand is being blurred out. So if we go back to 0 and we make some minor adjustments, we can see it's starting to match up with what her hand's looking like. With 3.4 pixels, looks pretty good. Click OK. Now you can see as we added the adjustments in, we can quite literally just turn them on or off through this tool here. And if we need to make some readjustments to the tools, we can double click it, and then that'll come up with the settings that we set it as. So we could adjust the hue, saturation if we needed to again, which I'm just going to increase that. And you can see now that's pretty nicely blended. So now we're going to go ahead and add the fire just on her right hand. So I'm going to find the PNG I want to use. Okay, so we're just going to drag it into the image. Now we're just going to, once again, just hold shift and then go to the bottom corner and scale it, just so that it lines up nicely with where we want to position it. Once again, I'm going to flip it horizontally, and then we're going to scale it a bit more. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. We'll click OK, and we're going to start off, of course, by using the camera raw filter to make the adjustments that we need to blend the colors in together. So back to the HSL, adjust those a bit, and a bit of the clarity too, and then we'll click OK. And now we're going to use the exact same technique as we used with the left hand. So we're just going to go ahead and add a layer mask to it. So click add layer mask, go to the eraser tool just here, and then we're going to just erase it from our fingers, and then we'll just add it back in. So select the paintbrush tool, and we're going to add it back in between our fingers. If we need to adjust the layer without actually wanting to move the layer mask, then just click the link tool here, and then we can just drag it around within that mask. And that's looking pretty good. I'm just going to scale it a little bit as well, and then just drag it up a bit. And now to finish this one off, what we're going to do is we're going to go up to our filter, go filter, blur, Gaussian Blur, and it'll come up with the exact same settings as we added to the second one here. We're just going to double check that they look pretty even. Might just decrease that a little bit, and we'll click OK. So before we proceed, I just like to go ahead and look back at the layers that we've made already, and we're just going to rename them so that we can keep track. So this one was the fire on the left, so make sure you just double click on it, and then it'll come up with a rename option. This was the fire on the right. And if you want to hide the smart filters, then just click the arrow key just here, the red light on her hair. That one was the red light on her neckline. Okay, so now we're just going to go ahead and make a couple of fine adjustments to the photo. We're going to adjust the red light a little bit as well, so we might add a bit more of that in, just in between our fingers. Basically, we're just filling the gaps where it looks too cold. The next adjustment I wanted to make was to add some background smoke. So to find this, what we do is we go onto Safari, go back onto Google. We're going to be using stock photography to find this background smoke as well. I just normally search smoke effects PNG, go onto images, and that'll come up with a bunch that we can use. Okay, so you can use any single image you want from Google here. I've also, of course, I've left one in the resources section next to the fire PNGs as well. So if you want to use the same one that I use, then you can go ahead and use that as well. Drag that in, and then we're just going to position it exactly where we want it. So I want it to be covering the entire background, and then a little bit of the fire as well. Once we've scaled it, click OK, Make sure it's behind everything else apart from your frequency separation and background layer. Then we're going to hold Option and click Add Layer Mask. Now we can just add it in just as a highlight feature in the background. Make sure that you don't have it covering any of your model's hair or skin. And we're just going to go ahead and refine the mask. So I'm just going to erase any parts of the mask that I don't want to be in the photo. Okay, so we can see that's pretty strong. So we're just going to go ahead and decrease the opacity a little bit for that, so that it's more of a feature rather than standing out too much. And the last step I normally do on the photo is I'd normally go ahead and add a dodge and burn layer. So you already know how to do a dodge and burn. Click Add New Layer, Shift Delete, Enter. And then we go Blending Mode Overlay. And press O on our keyboard to get to the dodge tool. We're going to make the smoke stand out a bit, brighten up her hands a bit, and also even out the inconsistencies in her skin too. So I'm just going to skip through this part so we can see the final result of the photo. Okay, so looking at the final image, I also noticed that there was actually a bit of hair just sticking out of the photo here. So I went ahead and used the healing brush just to patch that up. Now this is the final result that we got. This is before the dodge and burn, and this is after the dodge and burn. We increased the exposure of the smoke a little bit, and then decrease the background elements just so that it really stands out. I also increased the exposure of her skin and her eyes to make them really pop out, and also just even out the exposure just on the edge of her arms just here. So here's the final images. Thank you so much for participating in the Photoshop Mastermind course. I'm sure you learned a lot of new skills through participating in this course. I'd like to see the images that you create as well. If you use some of these techniques, make sure that you tag me on Instagram, and then I'll repost them on my story saying that you use the techniques in my retouching tutorial. If you have any questions additionally about Photoshop or Lightroom use, make sure that you send me a direct message on Instagram or Facebook, and I'll answer any questions that you may have.